a dark and stormy night, I think it's an appropriate day to tell the rest of my ghost story. So I wanted to tell you guys the scariest ghost story that has ever happened to me. The other two were the first weird experiences that I couldn't quite explain, but this one actually happened to me and I still can't explain it. I'm not sure what happened, but it's just a little bit more of an involved story, so I thought I would separate this one from the other two. But this is my scariest ghost experience. I still, like I said in the other video, I don't know if I believe in ghosts. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but there are things that have happened that I can't explain. But that's why I kind of want to talk about it. Maybe you guys have a realistic explanation for what happened. I don't know. But please feel free to leave your ghost stories down below because I just love reading other people's experiences, even if I'm not sure how I feel about ghosts in real life. So, actually, before we begin, I do have a story about meeting with a witch, so let me know if you guys want to hear what the witch told me. It's a pretty crazy story too, but let's get back into the ghost story. Okay, so this happened a few years ago. We had moved into, this was quite a few places after the apartment, and we had actually moved into a house, so we still lived with our roommate from that apartment, but we also lived with Brian's, a few of Brian's family members, so it was like a lot of people, his brother and sister, and me and Brian and his roommate. Brian and I lived in the master bedroom, which was pretty large. And so there was a bedroom, and then on my side of the bed there was like a hallway. It wasn't a hallway, it was the bathroom, but it looked like a hallway, and on this side there were sliding glass doors for the closet, and then on this side were the sinks for the bathroom. And then after you walked, I'm just gonna call it a hallway because it's easier to say that. And then at the very end there was a bathtub, and then on the left was like the shower in the bathroom. So we moved into this place. It was a beautiful place. It wasn't a bad neighborhood. It was a newer home. It was a very beautiful house to live in. And at that time we only had Mosley. So let me grab him. So this is Mosley. Say hi, Mosley. And this is my older boy. And we didn't have Marlo, which is my bigger dog right here. So Mosley isn't like a growl at everything type of dog. Marlo is. He'll absolutely bark if he sees another dog and things like that, but he's not like a hear anything outside growl type of dog. He's never done that. And then we got Marlo, who growls at absolutely everything. Her ears are always perked, she's always listening. Someone walks by and she starts growling. So I only had Mosley at the time, and I was laying in bed one night. I think maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. First, let me start by saying that I felt kind of odd living in that area. Not the house itself, I felt fine in the house, but in our bedroom specifically. I just always felt like I wasn't alone in there. It always kind of creeped me out, and I didn't really like being up there, mostly at night. During the day it wasn't as bad, but something about nighttime, everything just felt very different. So I didn't say anything to anyone because I don't assume everything's a ghost. I just felt odd in there, but I didn't say anything. And also, I worked opposite schedules of everyone. At that time I was teaching English online in China, so all my students were Chinese and I was on Chinese time. My hours were crazy. I was up all night and then I would sleep like most of the day. So a lot of the time I was just alone in the house. And so during the day, if I were downstairs, it would always kind of sound like somebody was walking around above my head in our bedroom. But again, you know, houses make noises, they creak, stuff like that. So I never said anything to anyone. I just always thought that it made me feel uncomfortable and weird, and I kind of avoided the bedroom. So we went out of town, and my dog Mosley stayed there, and our roommate actually watched him for the weekend. And he texted me when we were gone, and he's like, hey, I don't really like your room. It makes me uncomfortable. And so when I got home, we sat down and had this whole conversation, and he was like, yeah, I don't know, when you're downstairs, it sounds like someone's walking above you. When you're in the room, you don't really feel alone, and just basically everything that I had felt. And I'm like, yeah, I feel that way too, but I don't know what it is. I just didn't say anything. And he's like, yeah, your room's weird. So he kind of just avoided our room. So at night in the room, you would hear kind of like tapping noises, the pipes and things making noises, and it was really weird, and it only happened late at night, and it was usually when Brian was asleep, which always weirded me out that if he were awake, you didn't hear those tapping noises, but the second he fell asleep, he did. But again, coincidence, it was just odd. So anyways, I have Mosley, my dog that I showed you, and we're laying in bed one night, and Mosley starts making noises, like growling, whining kind of noises. And so I'm like, oh, he's, you know, having a bad dream. So I tap him with my foot, and he still keeps making those noises. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to like sit up and like shake him a little because I don't want him to have bad dreams. And I sit up, and my dog is fully awake. He's laying this way, staring down that hallway that I was telling you about, toward the end where the bathroom is, just growling at something. and the bathroom light was always on. I'm a little afraid of the dark, and I always have a light on when I'm sleeping, and so it wasn't like he could see a shadow and was confused or anything. The lights were on, and he was purposefully staring at something and growling at something down that little hall. And so I'm like, what the heck, what is that? I'm thinking like maybe something fell, or I don't know. So and then there were like towels back there, so I'm like, oh, maybe he's growling at the towels. I don't know, because he's never done that before. So I get up and I walk to the very end of the bathroom, and I'm like touching the towels, and he's growling, and I'm like, what is he growling at? And then the second I reached for the bathroom door, because we always kept it closed because we had a cat at the time, a different cat than we have now. The second I reached for the door, he just stopped growling. And I turned back and he curled up and went to bed. And I was like, that was weird. But again, I didn't think too much of it. I'm like, all right, that was kind of creepy, but let's just try to head to bed. So I go to bed, and probably a few weeks later, same thing happens. I'm laying in bed, I'm trying to sleep, and Mosley starts growling. I nudge him, I think he's having a bad dream. He keeps growling. I sit up to like shake him awake, and I realize, oh no, the same thing has happened. He is wide awake, laying this way, staring, growling, but this time he is not staring down the hall. This time he's staring 2 feet from the bed where the bedroom and the bathroom meet. And it's like 2 feet away from me. And he's just staring and growling at something. I don't know what. And so I'm really creeped out at this. I'm like, I don't know what he sees, and it's really close. It's not like he could have mistaken, you know, like before I thought it was the towels or something. The only thing down there was the cat's water. So I was like, what is going on? So I get up, I start walking over there. He's still growling. The second I get in that spot between the bathroom and the bedroom, he stops growling and turns around and goes to bed. And I'm like, what is this? So I tell my brother what happened and my roommate, and I just tell a few of my friends, and they're like, oh, that's a ghost. Everyone is convinced there's a ghost in my room. Everyone's like, he sees a ghost, you should be warned. There's something else in there that is not just you guys. But I wasn't like, oh, for sure this is a ghost. I just was weirded out by the situation. But a few other things happened there, and trust me, I'm saving the creepiest thing for last. So one night I'm laying in bed and I hear those tapping noises again and again. Everybody's been telling me, you know, like, you have a ghost, you really need to acknowledge that, accept it, whatever. And so the tapping noises are keeping me awake. And at this time, I'm on the worst sleeping schedule I've ever been on. I have really bad sleep hallucinations, like I was telling you in the last video, that I think is pertinent for hearing this story too. And I was sleeping like 2, 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. I was just a mess at this point. So the tapping kept me awake, and I'm like, all right, this has got to stop. So in my head, I'm like, okay, on the off chance that this is a ghost, on the off chance that someone is actually here and can hear me, can you please stop tapping so I can get to sleep? And the second I finished saying that, I heard this like bang. And it sounded like somebody was in my bathroom and like pounded on the door. And it scared me, and it scared the crap out of my cat. She jumped up. She used to sleep between us in a bed. It was really cute. She jumped up, I jumped, and we were just like, what was that? So that really creeped me out, because I was thinking like, man, if this is a ghost and I said, hey, can you please stop this? And then they make a louder noise, that can't be good. It did creep me out, but I was just like, all right, I'm not sure what that was, but I'm definitely not talking to this thing in my head anymore. So we lay down, we're kind of relaxing. I can't sleep now because I'm freaked out. And we had these wooden blinds on the windows, and our windows were never open because we lived right next to a freeway, so we could never open them. You heard cars constantly, and I have really sensitive, like I sleep very lightly. So anyways, above my husband's bed, he had a little window with those blinds on it, and we're laying there trying to sleep, and one of the blinds just, you hear it just like hit up and hit down, like someone just like flicked it up to look out the window. And my cat, it didn't scare me because it wasn't loud or anything. My cat jumped out of her skin. She was so terrified. So the next day when I told my husband, like, your blinds moved in the middle of the night, he was like, oh, you were just sleeping. I'm like, no, the cat heard it too. Like, it wasn't just me. And so I have people telling me, you know, oh, you, like, definitely this is a ghost. And then I have my husband being like, you just have bad sleeping schedules. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you're probably right. It was weird, but it wasn't the end of the world. So a while later, I'm laying in bed and I'm trying to sleep, and I remember I could not fall asleep. But you know how sometimes you're like, wow, I didn't sleep all night, but then you're like, oh, I must have fallen asleep between these like episodes of a show I was watching or whatever. So I could have sworn I was awake, but who knows, maybe I had drifted off. But I'm laying in bed one night and I don't know what possessed me to look at the foot of our bed, but that is what I did. I sat up and I looked below our bed. I don't know if I heard something. I don't know if I felt something. I have no idea. But I saw a man and he was kneeled down by the foot of our bed and he was staring out the window, and the blinds were up but the windows were shut and you could see the moon. I don't know if the blinds were all the way up or if they were just open, but I could see the moon and I could see this man looking up at the moon. He could not see, it was like he couldn't sense me, he didn't know I was there. It was just like he was just having this moment. I don't know if he was praying or what, but he was just on his knees like looking up at the moon. It freaked me out because I told you guys about the sleep hallucinations, and yes, I've seen figures in my room, and yes, I see things sometimes when I wake up too quickly. But this was a man. I could tell you exactly what he looked like. I could describe his haircut. He was bald on top with like really short hair on the sides. I could describe every feature of this man's face. And it was like there was a man in my room, and I freaked out. I laid back in bed. I threw the covers over my head like I was a 2-year-old child, and I just kept hitting my husband, screaming, "There's someone in the room! There's someone in the room!" And he woke up and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "There's a man in the room. I saw a man." So my husband gets up and looks around and he said, "There's no man. You just had a sleep hallucination." And I'm like, "You don't understand what I saw though. It was a person." I never ended up asking the person that we were renting the house from, you know, if a man had maybe passed there or anything like that. But I do know it was a single woman who owned the house, or like not a couple, I should say. So I don't know. Some people talk about ghosts being like imprints in time, and that's kind of what it felt like. Like it kind of felt like I'm gonna close the window because now it's getting dark and the neighbors can see me talking to myself with the camera, and that's a little awkward. Anyways, that's kind of what it felt like, was like I was getting a moment to look at something that I shouldn't have seen. I don't know, it was so weird. But at the same time, I was having horrible sleep issues at that time. I was only sleeping a few hours a night. Could I have fallen asleep and dozed off and thought I saw someone? Yeah, of course. But I have never dreamt of something so realistic as like a human that I just made up in my head standing right in front of me. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that I saw maybe somebody that had lived in the house prior? Do you think it was just my sleep schedule? What do you guys think it was? I'm really curious. We ended up moving out of that place, actually to move into the townhouse that we're in now with just my husband and I. And I have not felt or seen anything creepy in here. I do have a few other stories if you guys are interested in hearing them. They're not creepy, they're just kind of like strange and interesting. So let me know if you guys are interested in those. Like I said, I also have a story for the witch, but this was the creepiest thing that has happened that I still can't wrap my brain around. I still can't really comprehend what happened and how I saw just a man sitting on his knees in my bedroom that night. But who knows? I wasn't sleeping a lot and maybe I was dreaming. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. Please feel free to leave your ghost stories down below, and I will see you tomorrow with another horror video. Bye guys.